Maya sighed, rolling her eyes. For the last time, Daniel, I was at the office late. Her voice carried that practiced exasperation, the kind designed to make him feel like a paranoid fool for even asking. Daniel smiled, nodding as if her words made perfect sense. He was always so agreeable, so calm, too calm, perhaps. Oh, that's funny, he murmured, pulling out his phone with deliberate ease. He tapped the screen a few times, then turned it toward her. The glow of the display flickered across the dinner table, illuminating a company security log. Because, I just checked the company records, you left at 6. Maya's fingers tightened around the stem of her wine glass. The shift was small, but Daniel caught it. He always caught the little things. Subtle cues, fleeting expressions, the way her pulse jumped at the base of her throat when she was startled. He had spent years studying her, the way a chess master studies his opponent's every move. She started, but stopped herself. A microsecond of hesitation. He watched as her brain worked, adjusting, recalibrating. I went out with some colleagues afterward, she said smoothly, lifting the glass to her lips, taking a controlled sip as if that could wash away the lie forming on her tongue. Daniel set his phone down, still smiling. Oh? Which colleagues? Maya paused just a fraction too long before responding. You don't know them. New hires. Ah, Daniel mused, tilting his head. That's odd. I ran into Alex this morning. Said the whole team left together after work. No mention of you being there. He took a casual bite of his steak, chewing slowly. You must have met up with a different group then? She nodded quickly, as if relieved by the lifeline he had just offered her. Yeah, exactly. A different group. Where'd you go? He asked. His tone still light, conversational, like this was any other dinner. Maya shifted in her seat. A wine bar. Daniel leaned forward slightly, resting his elbows on the table, his dark eyes locked onto hers, holding them in place like a predator toying with prey. Which one? Maya's lips parted, but this time, no answer came. Silence stretched between them, thick and suffocating. She placed her glass down carefully, as though afraid of making a wrong move. Daniel smiled. Checkmate was inevitable. The silence between them stretched, growing heavier with each passing second. Maya's mind was working, Daniel could see it, turning over possibilities, searching for an exit, a way to smooth over the growing cracks in her story. She was always good at this, quick on her feet. He had admired that about her once, the way she could weave words like silk, how she could turn a mistake into a misunderstanding with just the right tilt of her head, the right sigh, the right laugh. But tonight it wasn't working. The name of the wine bar. He prompted again, his voice as smooth as ever, patient. He wanted to see what she would do next, what shape her next lie would take. Maya exhaled through her nose and picked up her fork, cutting into her food as if that could create a casual distraction. I don't remember, she said, shaking her head lightly. We had a few drinks, and I wasn't paying attention to the name. I think it was on 6th Street, maybe 7th. Daniel took a sip of his water, unbothered by her response. That's strange, he mused, tapping his fingers lightly against the table. I looked up all the wine bars around that area earlier today, just out of curiosity, of course. There were only 3, and none of them had any new hires from your office on their guest list. Maya stilled for the briefest moment before she forced a scoff, shaking her head. You're checking guest lists now? Jesus, Daniel, do you even hear yourself? This is insane. She let out a small, incredulous laugh, playing the role of the wrongfully accused wife perfectly. Daniel leaned back in his chair, studying her with quiet amusement. Oh, come on, Maya, you always post your wine nights on Instagram. Cute little boomerangs of clinking glasses, a snapshot of the menu, something aesthetic for the feed. But last night? Nothing. Not even a blurry shot of the drinks. That's not like you. Her jaw tightened slightly before she let out a short, humorless laugh. So now you're tracking my Instagram habits? Jesus, you really are paranoid, he chuckled, shaking his head. No, just observant. He let that settle before he continued, lowering his voice just slightly, just enough to make her uneasy. What were you really doing, Maya? She scoffed again, rolling her eyes dramatically, but he saw the flicker of discomfort in her expression. I told you already. I was out with coworkers. Right, Daniel said, nodding as if he believed her. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone again, unlocking it with a swipe. He tapped a few times before turning the screen toward her. Funny thing is, I had a tracker put on your car last month. Just for safety, of course. You can never be too careful these days. Maya's breath hitched, her composure slipping for the first time that evening. You didn't go anywhere near 6th or 7th Street, he continued, tilting his head slightly. Your car was parked outside the Hyatt on 12th for 3 hours. She blinked, her lips slightly parted, but no words came. Daniel watched her, waiting, enjoying the moment. He had spent weeks, months, collecting these little inconsistencies, lining them up like dominoes, and now, one by one, he was knocking them down. Finally, Maya let out a breathy, nervous laugh and shook her head. I went to see a friend, a private matter. I didn't want to bring it up because it's personal. Daniel raised an eyebrow. A personal matter that required 3 hours at a hotel? She clenched her jaw, frustration flickering in her eyes. It's not what you think. Oh, I know exactly what it is, he murmured, setting his phone down. I just wanted to hear you lie to me one last time. Maya swallowed hard, her face pale now, her confidence shattered. And Daniel? He had never felt calmer. Maya's fingers trembled slightly as she set her fork down, the soft clink against the plate breaking the unbearable silence between them. For the first time that evening, she looked uncertain, as if the ground beneath her had suddenly shifted and she was struggling to find her footing. Daniel knew that feeling well. He had spent months living in it, questioning every glance, every late night, every excuse she had fed him so easily. Now it was her turn to experience that creeping sense of inevitability, the slow, dawning horror of realizing there was no way out. Daniel, you're taking this way too far, she said finally, her voice laced with forced calm. You've always had trust issues, but this? Installing a tracker on my car? Snooping around like some obsessed detective? Do you even hear yourself? Daniel smirked, tilting his head slightly. Trust issues, he echoed, as if tasting the words. That's an interesting choice coming from you, considering you're the one who's been lying to my face for months. Maya crossed her arms, leaning back in her chair as if trying to put some distance between them. You're twisting everything. Just because my car was at a hotel doesn't mean anything. There are 100 different explanations, and instead of giving me the benefit of the doubt, you're jumping straight to the worst conclusion. Daniel chuckled under his breath, shaking his head as he wiped his mouth with his napkin and carefully set it down beside his plate. The worst conclusion? He met her gaze, his expression unreadable. You mean the one that happens to be the truth? Maya huffed, shaking her head. You don't know what you're talking about. Oh, but I do, he said smoothly, reaching into his pocket again. This time, he pulled out a neatly folded piece of paper and placed it on the table between them. He didn't unfold it, he wanted her to make the choice. Would she grab it, desperately trying to control the narrative? Or would she leave it, afraid of what it contained? She hesitated, her eyes darting between him and the paper, and in that moment Daniel saw something new in her expression. Fear, not just worry or discomfort, but real, unfiltered fear. I didn't want to believe it at first, he continued, his tone still casual, almost conversational. I thought maybe I was imagining things, reading too much into small details. So I started collecting them just to be sure. And guess what? Every time I cross-checked your stories, they unraveled just a little more. Maya swallowed hard, pressing her lips together. I don't know what you think you have, but Daniel cut her off with a quiet laugh. Oh, come on, Maya. Don't insult both of us by pretending I'm grasping at straws. Open the paper. She hesitated again, but eventually reached for it, her fingers trembling slightly as she unfolded it. As her eyes scanned the text, Daniel saw her breath hitch. Her grip on the page tightened. Hotel reservation under the name Joshua L. Carter, he said, watching her reaction carefully. Checked in at 6:45 p.m., checked out at 10:32 p.m., paid with your credit card. Want me to keep going? Amy's throat bobbed as she struggled to swallow. It's not what it looks like, she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. Daniel scoffed. That's rich. Tell me, what exactly does it look like? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you met up with Josh, booked a hotel room, and stayed just long enough for a few drinks, some small talk, and... well, you know the rest. Her jaw clenched, her eyes flickering with a mixture of shame and defiance. I was helping him with something personal. Daniel raised an eyebrow. Ah, personal, he repeated. Like his belt? His shirt buttons? Maybe his tie? Maya slammed the paper onto the table, her frustration bubbling over. I can't believe you're enjoying this, she snapped. Enjoying it? Daniel's voice was dangerously low now, his expression darkening. I spent months questioning myself, wondering if I was just being paranoid. I gave you the benefit of the doubt so many times, even when the evidence was piling up right in front of me. But tonight, I'm done pretending. I'm done being the fool in your little game. Maya's breath was shaky, her confidence slipping faster than she could rebuild it. Daniel, No, he interrupted sharply, his eyes locking onto hers with a finality that sent a shiver down her spine. No more excuses, no more lies. We both know exactly what happened at that hotel. She looked away, her shoulders sinking slightly, her facade crumbling. Daniel exhaled slowly, his voice dropping to something almost eerily calm. Tell me, Maya, was it worth it? For the first time that night, she had no answer. Maya's lips parted, but no words came out. The confidence she had worn like armor all these months had cracked beyond repair, leaving her exposed in the worst possible way. She had always relied on her charm, her ability to manipulate conversations, to turn guilt into misunderstanding, to shift blame onto Daniel's supposed insecurities. But now there was nowhere to run. She looked down at the hotel receipt still lying between them on the table. The ink was crisp, the details undeniable. Her name, the date, the time. Every piece of evidence Daniel had so meticulously collected was staring back at her, a monument to her downfall. Daniel watched her carefully, his expression unreadable. He had spent too long in silence, watching from the shadows, piecing together every inconsistency in her stories. But tonight, he was no longer a spectator. Tonight, he was the one pulling the strings. He leaned back in his chair, exhaling slowly, giving her space to fill the silence with whatever excuse she would try to conjure next. He was almost curious. What would it be this time? A colleague in distress? A work emergency? A lapse in judgment after one too many drinks? Maya finally took a deep breath and lifted her gaze to meet his. It wasn't supposed to happen like this, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Daniel tilted his head slightly, feigning interest. Oh? And how was it supposed to happen, exactly? She hesitated. I never meant for things to go this far. Daniel chuckled under his breath, shaking his head. Classic, he mused. You never meant for it to happen, and yet it did, over and over again. He gestured toward the receipt. This wasn't a one-time mistake, Maya. This wasn't some drunken accident. You planned this. You lied, you covered your tracks, you made me question my own instincts. Maya flinched at the coldness in his tone. I was unhappy, she blurted, as if that would somehow justify everything. Things between us haven't been the same for a long time, Daniel. You've been so distant, so focused on work, so... He laughed, a dry, humorless sound. And that gave you permission to cheat, to meet Josh in hotels while I sat at home, oblivious? I didn't do this to hurt you, she insisted, her voice growing desperate now. Stop, Daniel cut in sharply, his patience finally wearing thin. Just stop, Maya. You didn't do this to hurt me? Then what exactly was your motivation? Boredom? Excitement? Did you get some sort of sick thrill sneaking around behind my back? She blinked rapidly, shaking her head. No, that's not it. Then tell me what it is, he pressed, his eyes narrowing. Tell me why you thought I wasn't worth the truth. Why you thought I wouldn't figure it out. Maya let out a shuddering breath, running a hand through her hair. Because I thought I could fix it before you ever found out, she admitted. I thought maybe it would just be a phase, something I could walk away from, something that didn't have to mean anything. Daniel's expression hardened. A phase? He let the word hang in the air, heavy and bitter. Is that what you call sneaking around for months? Lying straight to my face? Gaslighting me into thinking I was just imagining things? Her bottom lip trembled. I didn't know how to stop. Of course you did, he shot back. You could have stopped at any time. You could have chosen to tell me the truth instead of making me feel like an idiot for suspecting it. She wiped at her eyes, but there were no real tears, only the illusion of regret. I know I messed up, she whispered. Daniel sighed, shaking his head. No, Maya, you didn't just mess up. You made a choice. Repeatedly. He exhaled slowly, rubbing his temple. And now, you have to live with the consequences. Her breath hitched. What? What does that mean? Daniel leaned forward, resting his forearms on the table. His voice was eerily calm, almost too controlled. It means I'm done playing your game. I've already spoken to a lawyer. Maya's face went pale. Daniel, please. No, he interrupted. You don't get to beg now. You had your chances. You had every opportunity to come clean, to be honest, to show some kind of respect for our marriage, and instead, you lied to me. Over and over again. Tears welled in her eyes, but Daniel didn't waver. You don't have to do this, she whispered. He let out a slow, measured breath. Maya, I already have. Maya's breath was shallow, her hands gripping the edge of the table as if it were the only thing keeping her grounded. Daniel could see it now, the realization creeping in, tightening around her like a noose. She had always been so sure of herself, so certain that she could keep her secrets buried, that she could manipulate her way out of anything. But now, with the evidence laid bare in front of her, and Daniel's unwavering gaze locked onto her, there was no escape. Her lips parted, but she hesitated, as though weighing her next move. A desperate plea? A final, futile lie? Or would she finally, for the first time, tell the truth? Daniel, please, she whispered, her voice raw with emotion. We can work through this. Daniel let out a slow, deliberate breath, tilting his head slightly as he studied her. Work through this? He repeated the words as if testing them, rolling them over his tongue before letting them settle. Maya, I don't think you fully grasp what's happening here. She blinked rapidly, shaking her head. I made a mistake. I got caught up in something I shouldn't have, but that doesn't mean I don't love you. That doesn't mean we can't fix this. A cold, humorless smile ghosted across Daniel's lips. Love? He echoed. You call this love? Maya swallowed hard, desperation flickering in her eyes. I never wanted to hurt you, and yet you did. His tone was emotionless, measured. You hurt me every time you looked me in the eyes and lied. Every time you came home and acted like everything was fine. Every time you let me doubt myself. Made me feel like I was the one losing my mind. She opened her mouth, then closed it again, knowing there was no defense, no justification that could undo the months of deception. Daniel reached into his pocket and pulled out a second folded piece of paper. He placed it on the table between them with the same quiet finality as before. These are the divorce papers, he said evenly. I had them drawn up last week. Maya's face drained of color. Her fingers trembled as she reached for the document, but she didn't unfold it. Instead, she just stared at it as if it were something poisonous. You already decided, she whispered. Daniel nodded. I did. Her breath hitched. So? You never even considered forgiving me? Daniel leaned back in his chair, folding his arms across his chest. Maya, tell me, if I hadn't caught you, would you have stopped? She hesitated, just for a moment. Just long enough. Daniel nodded to himself as if that pause had confirmed everything. That's what I thought. Tears finally spilled down her cheeks, but he felt nothing. No sympathy, no anger, no satisfaction. Just a strange sense of clarity. She wasn't crying because she was sorry for what she had done. She was crying because she had lost. You should go, Daniel said after a long pause. I'll have your things packed by tomorrow. Maya wiped at her face, but the tears kept coming. Where am I supposed to go? He shrugged. You could always stay with Josh, he said, voice laced with quiet venom. Unless, of course, he was never planning on leaving his wife for you. Her face crumpled, and for the first time that evening, Daniel saw real fear in her eyes. You don't have to do this, she pleaded one last time. Daniel stood, grabbing his plate and taking it to the sink as if this was just another ordinary evening. I was never paranoid, Maya, he said over his shoulder. I was just waiting for you to dig your own grave. And with that he walked away, leaving her alone with the wreckage of her own choices.